pray. I know I've got to press into God. I know I've got to begin to do something more. I've got to strengthen my spirit. I know I've got to do it. God, deliver me from this. But all I ever did was spoke to myself in my head about how I knew what I needed to do, but I never did it. Does that make sense? I knew what I needed to do. I spoke what I needed to do. I proclaimed what I needed to do, but I never did what I needed to do. I was too busy complaining about where I was instead of doing what I needed to do to get out of where I'm at. You can get stuck in a mud hole and sit there and complain about it, but until you do something, get up and get out of it, nothing's going to happen. Remember with my grandfather, before he passed away, when I was a young boy, I was riding on a four-wheeler. First thing he tells me is, whatever you do, boy, do not ride that four-wheeler through that pond. But I knew everything. Or so I thought. Because the day before, me and my cousin had just gone through that pond on the four-wheeler. So I knew it was possible to get through it, and it was possible to get through without Grandpa knowing it. So what I did is I got on that four-wheeler, and the first thing that I did is I went through that pond. But the difference between the day before and today was, it was a low-water pond. There was barely any water in it, and sometimes it was even dry. But the difference is overnight it rained. Overnight, water began to seep into the bottom of that pond that was empty before. And I didn't realize it. And as I began to drive through there, I got stuck in the middle. Right after Grandpa said, don't do it. And I was there for the summer, a couple weeks. Mom and Dad weren't there. So the only one to discipline me was going to have to be Grandpa. So I get stuck. And I'm spinning those tires, and I just sit there for a while. And you know what? I start to cry. I was like, oh no, he just told me not to do this, and now I'm stuck. I can't get out. And I sat there, and I sat there, and I sat there, and I sat there. And then I tried to pull myself out, and I tried to do something. And I kept continuing to try to make it about, it wasn't even about getting out, it was about me not getting in trouble. It became about me. It wasn't even about that I'd sinned against my grandfather. It was about me that I would get in trouble for sinning against him. How often is it that sometimes that's the reason we don't sin? It's because we're afraid we'll get in trouble for it, not because of what God thinks of it. But so I get out and I begin I'm up to this far in the mud. It got so deep. Trying to lift this thing out, trying to pull it, I'm sliding, I'm covered in mud. I come up to my grandfather's house. I don't even have to get to the house. I come out of the woods. And there he is. He could hear those tires spinning out there. And there he is standing there. I'm like, Grandpa, I'm sorry. I just got in the mud. And he's like, I know you did, boy. He goes, what did I tell you to do? You don't want to go in the mud. But I thought I could make it. But he knew I couldn't. And he knew exactly what I wanted to do. But what he did is he came and helped me. Why? Because I came to the place that I had to stop trying to get it out on my own. And I had to get to a place that I came and I repented. And I said, I need help. Will you help me? Will you help me get me out of the mess that I got myself into? Even the very mess that I knew that I wasn't supposed to do, that I sinned against you, but here I am before you and I'm repenting. And he smiled. I thought he'd be mad and yell at me and get upset. And he smiled and he said, all right, let's go pull it out. And you wouldn't believe the relief that I had. You wouldn't believe how free I began to feel. And that's the way it is with Christ. That he's given us freedom that we can accept. That even when we've sinned against him, we've done so wrong, we've done so many things, even when we knew we shouldn't have, and we put ourselves in a situation because of what we've done, he's still saying, let me give you a hand. I love you. Let me do something for you. Let me help you out. But what he's waiting for is us to get to a position that we can no longer do it, that we have to turn to him. That we get to a position of humility. Because what we try to do is our pride sinks in and we try to do it all alone. And in this very verse, in these very things, what happened is pride began to kick in. Look what we've overcome. Look what we've passed. Well, we've conquered the grave by living through the flood. Well, we've got God on our side. We've done so many things ourselves. We've been able to take the ground of what God made of nothing, and we've turned it into brick and mortar. Look who we are. Look what we've done. And as we do today, what they wanted was a name for themselves. They wanted was a name for themselves. They wanted their own identity. We live in a generation that is self-confident. We live in a generation that we've done so great for ourselves that we feel little need for God. Then in a generation, in a culture that we live in, that if we seek help, it shows weakness. But it's totally opposite in the spiritual realm, because when we have weakness is when we need to go to God, because God says He'll turn our weakness into strength. He'll be our very strength.